Red coats with white cuffs. What color coat would their musician wear? White coats. That's it. That's correct. Yep. So if I was a British infantry soldier and I wore a red coat with a white cuff or white trim, then I would wear a white coat with red collars and cuffs. Okay. So let's ask a few questions, and then we're going to do some demonstration of a few things. And let's go down there to the gentleman on the end.
How do y'all stand still like that? Do it burn? Like, do it make your legs burn when you stand still like that?
So he asked, how do we stand so still? Do our legs burn? Is that right? It's our job, literally our job to stand. It's literally our job. So a lot of times we'll do retirement ceremonies or jobs at the White House where we are required to stand for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And that is while the very important people are speaking, we are standing there respectfully until it's time to leave. And that's our job, is to and what it is, sir, is discipline. And that's just part of being a soldier, military bearing, right? And we're taught discipline from a very early point in our careers, just to stand still and be respectful while others are talking, right? Thank you for the question. Over here?
Old times, girls wasn't allowed to do this. I have a question. Why are they doing this?
Does someone want to take that? I'll be glad to take it. Yeah, so your point was they weren't allowed to, right? And now they're doing it now, right? Well, you're right. So back then, females were not in the military. However, if you do research, you will find there were many females that did in fact sneak into the lines, and there are many examples of females fighting for the Continental Army. In our specific unit, the Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps, we are in a larger unit called the Old Guard, the 3rd Infantry Regiment. And we were the first unit in that regiment to let females into our company, into our smaller unit, and that was in 1982. And we are a unit that believes, an Army believes, equal opportunity. Everyone deserves a fair shot, and there are no barriers to anyone being in our unit or being in a military unit. And that is definitely one of the foundational principles of what we believe. I'll depend on you to find.
What is that on your head, and what does it symbolize?
Okay, great question. If you couldn't hear, she asked what is on my head and what does it symbolize. So if you're listening to our announcer, our narrator, this is a light infantry cap. It's known as a Tarleton cap. And these hats were worn by the soldiers that guarded General Washington during the Revolutionary War. His unit was called the Commander-in-Chief's Guard. And because we serve in an infantry unit, we serve alongside infantry soldiers, we kind of honor them, and we pay homage to the origin of our unit in 1784 and wear the light infantry cap. There's a couple things in my uniform that pay homage.
Why were there musicians in the battlefield?
I'll keep answering unless you guys want to. Just let me know. Okay. I don't want to take everything. So why were musicians on the battlefield? So we're going to demonstrate that in a second. Let's do it right now. I'm going to ask Nick to do something first. So where they're yelling and he plays. Stop playing. Just play Reveille. All right, so we're gonna do a thing where you all need to scream as loud as possible until not yet. Until you all can be as loud as possible until you hear music, okay? And when you hear music, you need to stop You need to be as quiet as quickly as possible, okay? So when I say now, I want you to be as loud as possible. And when you hear music, stop being loud, all right? You got it, all right? Are you ready? Now. All right, so we got the general idea, right? So the question was asked, why are musicians on the field of battle? And so imagine cannons and screaming and guns firing and smoke and heat and people running into one another. And above that, all of that, you hear a drum, a fife, or a bugle. Those instruments are uniquely made to be heard over and under those noises and that chaos, okay? So if we're fighting and if the soldiers are fighting and you need to tell the soldiers it's time to retreat, the fife and drum would play a retreat march, would play retreat or ceasefire, and the soldiers were trained to recognize that music. And it was a way of the commander being able to relay commands across the battlefield. Because on a clear day, back then, with no noise pollution, you could hear a fife and a drum up to a mile away. So those were really useful ways of communicating on a battlefield. Very nice job. Very nice job. I'm gonna get to you next. Yeah, over here.
Why do y'all only have trumpets and flutes?
Well, so the question was, why do we have trumpets and flutes? Only have trumpets and flutes. So those are actually called bugles. A little bit different. Well, I can briefly talk about those in a second. Fifes, not flutes, fifes. Field snare drum and field bass drum. And those instruments 200 years ago were they're known field instruments because they could easily be transported and they were very kind of basic, easy to play, easy to use instruments. She's had her hand up since the beginning.
Doesn't that thingy on your head make your head hot? And is it soft?
What doesn't it make my head hurt? And is it soft? Hot. Yes. So if you can imagine wearing this when it's 100 degrees outside, it does get quite hot, especially with the wig. And then also, yeah, it's made out of bear fur, so it is pretty soft. Yeah, that's real bear fur.
How do you stand while you're drumming if you don't smile?
Anyone want to answer that? How do you stand and drum without smiling?
Practice.
Yeah, no. Like we were talking about earlier, as he eloquently put it, it takes practice to be disciplined, right? You got to practice doing all that, and we do practice our game face for sure. It's one of the things we tell our new soldiers is got to practice looking really serious when you're playing. Last question. We got over here. Yeah, last question.
Why do the designs on the snare drums look like that?
Ooh, excellent question. What's the design for? Can you explain the design? All right, ST test right here. Go ahead.
Yeah, so our drums have the crest of the 3rd Infantry Regiment. That's the regiment to which we were assigned. So you see there's an eagle, and all of the elements, there's many elements to the crest. It's kind of hard to see from the audience, but they all symbolize something that the regiment has been a part of or something related to America. And then along the side here, all of these streamers, you see all these names, those are all the battles that our regiment has been a part of from the Revolution all the way down to, you see there's 2004, there's Iraq and Afghanistan down there at the bottom. So long history of the 3rd Infantry Regiment, and it's detailed here on the drums. Great question.
Yeah, and like I was saying, everything is purposeful. So just like my hat, my bear fur I'm wearing, the Tarleton, my sticks, this S pontoon here, things on our uniforms, the way our uniforms are patterned, the colors on the uniform, the white and the black symbolize our treaty and alliance with France. So everything, every part of this uniform, and a lot of what they did in the 1700s, the 18th century, was purposeful and for a reason. So, yeah, that's, you know, and that is symbolized right there on that drum.